What did that voice sound like? Like, was it haunting? Was it angry?
If I presented anything to you other than the recovered person, then I was not lovable.
You opened your mouth and silence flopped out.
Silence is agreeing that I'm not going to try to move forward.
Was there any part of your lying and hiding that felt holy or virtuous?
Welcome to The Couple Cure. Here's Jay and Lori Pyatt.
Hello, everyone. It's Jay and Lori Pyatt with A Couple Cure. And today's question was going to be, did Jay ever have a moment where he almost told the truth but backed off? And I asked him just to be safe, did that actually happen? Because I had a sneaking suspicion that it never did. So the question has instead turned into, you've said there wasn't a single moment that you almost told the truth but didn't. But did you ever feel like you should tell the truth?
Yeah, there were times where I kind of had this voice in my head saying, just come clean. Like take the open door to tell her what's going on. And at least early on, I didn't listen to it. I kind of, like we talked about in the previous episode, if I just get things fixed, I'll never have to tell her anything, and everything will be okay.
What did that voice sound like? Like, was it haunting? Was it angry?
No, it wasn't angry. It was kind of tired. It felt like, let's just get this over with. Let's move on. It wasn't judgy. It felt like something I, needed to listen to, but I kept thinking that, no, things will be so much worse if I tell the truth right now. So I was just going to not listen to it, but it was not angry at all.
Did it come from inside you, or did it feel like it came from outside you?
It felt like it came in from inside of me, more of a voice of reason. You need to come clean. You need to get it out in the open. You need to start having this conversation. And I wasn't ready for it.
Would you call it your gut or God? Or God speaking through your gut?
Kind of depends. I would say it was primarily probably my gut. I wasn't close enough to God probably to hear him, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was God through my gut, a little bit of both.
I kind of feel like God does talk to all of us in the voice that says, you really shouldn't be doing this. I think it happens early on when we first start finding things to get into. And I think personally, if we don't listen to it, then that voice can get quieter and quieter and quieter. I think he still talks to us, but I think we turn the volume down on that. But I also think that every once in a while he'll break through kind of when he feels, and maybe it's like in your own spirit, he was like, it's time.
Yeah.
Because you had said that a month and a half prior, you were saying like, I'm kind of tired of this. And you hadn't, for that month and a half, you hadn't used.
Right.
So the next question is, how did it impact you when it showed up? Did it ever haunt you?
I can't say that it impacted me other than, the bringing up that like response in me of, oh my gosh, I can't do that. The flesh part of me, the scared part of me of telling my secrets. But the kind of the haunting thing about it, I guess, was that I did have some promptings to tell the truth, and I chose not to. I did have opportunities that, again, they still would have been bad. It still would have, been a prolonged period of use, but I don't think it would have been as bad as D-Day.
just because it's coming to mind right now, circling back to what we said earlier, what I asked earlier about Jay, did the voice come from inside or outside? I don't know if this is the case universally, but this is what I've seen in my own life and in other people's lives. It's like when the voice comes from outside, it feels condemnatory. That might be the enemy. But when the voice comes from the inside, it's like, yeah, it's factual, it's based in reality. I know that is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Was that how that voice saying, come clean, is that how that impacted you?
Yeah. It was not a voice of judgment. Like I said, it was kind of tired or just like, come on, let's not keep this up. And pretty matter of fact of you're not getting traction on your own, and keeping it secret's not working. And so get it out there and let's go in a different direction. And my desire to stay hidden, my desire to stay, using, kind of overrode all that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What did you normally do when the voice showed up? Like we call it the ticker tape. What went through your head, as if somebody could see the thoughts, being typed out on a ticker tape.
When I was more committed to using, I shut that voice down pretty quickly. So I was like, hey, you could come clean. It was like, no way, not going to happen. I'm going to get this figured out. She never needs to know. And smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, the desire to shut it down didn't completely fade until the last time.
So at that point, even, when the door was open a little bit more, even if you felt like, yeah, maybe now's the time, you might have opened your mouth and like silence flopped out.
Yeah. Yeah. Dealing with the reality, I really wasn't ready for dealing with emotions and what happens next. And because a part of me was sure you would leave.
Okay.
Part of me was sure that this would be the last, conversation we would ever have. And, all the things that I had imagined about the situation all just kind of came flooding. And so I was like, I'm not going to say anything right now.
Okay.
So yeah, the silence kind of was right there.
Okay. Was there a part of you that felt like you could remain somewhat lovable by not listening to that voice?
To my memory, we hadn't talked about this, that you could accept the addict in me.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and definitely in my mind, either I'm an addict or I'm recovered. I had that very black and white thinking. And so if I presented anything to you other than the recovered person, then I was not lovable. I was back in the choosing myself and doing destructive things and the adultery of porn. And how could you love that? And it was my belief that somehow I needed to shut down all of those unacceptable parts and keep them hidden and keep them tucked away, and then you would be okay with me. And yeah, that wasn't true, but also we didn't have conversations around that either.
Yeah, and there's probably a reason why. I know when we were first married, anytime my friend who I was talking with on a regular basis about this would say, Jay's always going to be an addict. I hated hearing that because I was like, no, like that feels too risky to me. But when you got clean in around 2000, And then, to my knowledge, had 10 years of sobriety. I didn't find out till 10 years earlier that for 4 to 6 of those years, he was either edging or in full-blown relapse. It was in that 10-year period I started seeing, like, okay, maybe it's possible. Maybe it's possible. Because I did believe you. And I mean, you, to your credit, you did have, 4 years of true sobriety.
Yeah.
Maybe it was white knuckling, but
Yeah.
I started seeing how both of them could coexist in that. And then I think after the big D-Day 15 years ago, I was still like, no, I get that addict part. The big D-Day in 2010 proved that. You'll always be an addict, and you can find sobriety.
Right. Right. I talk to guys about this. There's parts of me that I define as unacceptable because I can't accept them. Nobody else probably would be able to either. And I have history to back that up, that there are people in my history that are like, no, that part of you is not okay. I know for me that self-acceptance, right? I need to be okay with me. Whether you are or not, I need to be okay with me, or I'm going to keep hiding things. I'm going to keep trying to push that part of me away, and we talked about, like holding a beach ball underwater.
Yeah.
That part of me is somehow going to come shooting out, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And the reality is it's unacceptable in certain ways, but it's not like I should be rejected, or, it's like when I twist some of those things or use them in the wrong way, that's the unacceptable part, not the fact that I find other women attractive. That's not
right.
That's
It's basic biology.
Yeah, that's biology. That's the way God designed us. And it's when I obsess and when I, turn that into, I turn that into God, that becomes unacceptable. But I turn it into, that part of me is unlovable. That part of me can never be loved. And that is where I get screwed up.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was about to say earlier, that it, even though you have those, and we all have those sides to us, it doesn't make us unlovable. But going back to the conversation that Jay was just kind of alluding to, there was and I didn't even know that this was the brick wall I kept like running up against, but for the longest time, Jay had it in his mind that I thought it was completely unacceptable that he found other women attractive. And I was just like, I can remember the day just going like, no, Jay, is just natural biology. We're all going to find somebody attractive. It's just, what do you do with it? Where do you go with it? Do you pursue that person? Do you lock them away in your mind? Do you think about me instead? Do you try to build something with me despite that going on? Or do you kind of, tuck it away and have something secret, even if it's just in your mind? I think it took that one conversation of just being very direct with him that he finally got it okay. No, I do think it did come out later in a kind of a smaller way. And I was like, no, Jay, we've been over this before. You might not find it acceptable for you, but I know it's just the way God wired us. I mean, honestly, if we could all see each other the way we are, the human race would have stopped a long time ago. So we all have these like rose-colored glasses that we see through and we see other people through. It's called the halo effect. And we don't see exactly how they are.
Right.
And therefore we propagate the nations. But Jay had locked it away in his mind that it was not okay. And that's what he's saying about the addict part of him.
Right.
The addict part of me is not acceptable. It's unlovable. I think so. Therefore, she must think so. Therefore, other people must think so too.
Yeah. And God.
Oh.
When people would say God doesn't make mistakes, I know for me and for many of the guys I talk to, they put a little asterisk at the end, except me. That somehow I got this thing that other people didn't, that make me more sinful, more broken, more despicable, or whatever. The Bible does talk about this, that we are depraved and holy, that we are saint and sinner. God is okay with this tension between good and bad and wants us to be better, try to get better, and many addicts fall into very black and white. If I'm not good, I must be bad. If I'm not doing things right, I'm doing something wrong, kind of stuff.
I'm glad you went into your knowledge about it now, because that was going to be my next question to you. But I have two things that are coming to mind. And the first one is something I heard a pastor say, and that is, God loves us all exactly how we are. He just loves us too much to leave us that way. Which that one, made a big impact on me. And the second one was something that I came across early in my Christian walk. And I had thought God was just this disciplinarian up in the sky. I hadn't yet met the loving side of him. And it was a book that was talking about God's grace, I believe, and the Velveteen Rabbit. Somebody was saying, like, but I'm ugly. How can this child love me? Or the Velveteen Rabbit is ugly. How can the child love it? Because it was tattered and worn, and, it had been so cuddled by this child that it had gotten kind of beaten up. And the third party said, the child doesn't love that rabbit because he's beautiful. That child loves the rabbit with a love that makes him beautiful. And that's what I truly believe, that if you really sink into that level of love, you'll start doing better.
Right.
You'll start having something more to connect with, something bigger, something more real, something more two-way on a daily basis to connect with. And that can take the place of, ways you used to act out.
Yeah. Yeah. And the visual that I give to the guys I talk to, and I know not all of us experienced a loving father, but if you can imagine a father who has a newborn child and absolutely loves this newborn child, and when he looks over the edge of the crib, all that comes to mind is how wonderful, how amazing. And that isn't in the father's mind about the condition of the child, whether or not the child is sleeping or crying or they have a dirty diaper or they've spit up all over the place. The father is so amazed by having a child and being the father to this child that the condition that they're in is just a thing. It's a temporary thing that can be changed. It's a temporary thing that can be, rectified. Like you said, he won't leave us in a dirty diaper. And from my perspective, I'm laying there thinking, all I can see is the fact that I've got a dirty diaper and he's going to reject me because I should have cleaned my own diaper. And it's like, that's not how this works.
Kind of switching topics just a little bit. Was there a part of you that felt you could remain lovable, or, the good parts of you could remain lovable for longer by staying silent?
I felt like I could only bring the lovable parts of myself into the room, whether it was with you or God or other people, that if I brought those other pieces in that I rejected, that I felt were unacceptable, then you would see the truth of who I was. And yes, I would be rejected because I brought in that part of me that, feels like the dirty diaper that I've carried around. And so not talking about it and keeping it hidden and not having conversations around the dirty diaper parts of my life, in my mind, made it easier to love me and to want me to be around more.
And this is just bringing something else up. if you're an addict and you feel like your wife would never accept that, from my experience working with many, many women, most women can accept the addict part of the man's life. It's the lies that they have a problem with. In fact, go back and watch the previous episode, 6.06. And in that, we talk about, what's worse than the porn. So keep that in mind, because her grace can extend that far. In fact, Jay had it kind of in his mind, like, I can't tell you because you'll freak out. So I made a list of all the times he told me, and did I freak out or not? And the only times I did freak out when he did come out with the truth was the times that he had been lying. And so we were able to pinpoint very accurately, this time did I treat you well? Yes. Had you been lying? No, you came to me right away when it happened. This time, same thing. This time, same thing. This is where I freaked out. And why? Let's look at why.
Right.
Because I have a history of, it's because you've been lying to me for 4 years.
Right. Lying is setting up another person to believe something to be real that isn't. And so when I'm hiding a part of myself by abusing her, that should, or that response of quote unquote freaking out, of saying, I don't like being abused, stop hurting me, is totally understandable in my rational head.
In your sober mind.
Yeah, in my sober mind, I can't let you see what's behind this door. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you from getting in that door, including things that are abusive, which is crazy, but that's what I did.
You said that not listening to your gut or not listening to God when he was telling you to come clean was costly. What do you feel like it cost us?
It cost us years of being able to live this way. It cost us, it cost me peace. That the turmoil, the cloud that was hanging over me, the stress, my nervous system being overactivated, knowing that I'm carrying a secret. And it cost you reality. It cost you your body, your hair, your mind. It was costly. It cost me, connection with people. It cost me not my job, but being good at my job. It kept me from being more engaged. It kept me from being a better employee. So in some ways, it cost me things that they're a little nebulous, but I know they're real.
It's funny because I was writing out what I felt like it cost, and one of the things was your job. I wondered, would you have been able to keep your job had you had a better attitude at work? Back then, you were very entitled, very, I'm not a part of the team. Don't ask me to help clean up after the picnic. And the guy who, in your same position, that survived those layoffs was, and not to say that Jay was the first one, you were like the fourth or fifth round of layoffs, but the guy who got to stay was one who was just there for the team.
Yeah.
Jay had turned it around that last year and a half, because I was like, you've got to become unfireable. And if, you were my employee, I'd probably fire you. You're very, lone wolf kind of a thing. And he was good at what he did, but I do wonder if the porn and the secrecy and that sort of thing did lead to a bad attitude, that they're like, yeah, he's not quite cutting it.
Yeah. And I was clean for 5 years before the layoff, but I think that attitude and mentality was still alive and well.
Yeah, because you didn't start really changing that mentality until like maybe the year prior, like at work.
Yeah.
For sure, the mentality changed because you had gotten a few awards that previous year. But I didn't start feeling like, okay, we're in the clear until about 6 months before you got fired. So, next question. This question is in 2 parts. It involves this truth: silence is never neutral. How did that concept apply to you back then?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, silence is agreeing that I'm not going to try to move forward. If I stay silent, I'm staying in my addiction. And in addiction, if we're not moving forward, we're going to drift backward. It is not a passive thing. We need to be active, and silence was a passive thing. It was, I'm choosing to do nothing, which allowed me to stay stuck.
Okay. The second part of that question is, how did it apply to us? Your silence didn't allow things to remain neutral here.
Right. In those moments, I was actively choosing me over us, which again kept us stuck, kept me stuck, kept you in the dark, continued the path of more lies, more pain coming in the future.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that last, was it the last one where you talk about the
stone.
606? Yeah. Go back to that last one and look at where we talk about raising a pebble to the height of the Eiffel Tower and then dropping it on her. That's kind of what happened. That I always look at who or what is in control, and Jay's silence was definitely in control. His hiding, his hidden life, all of that was in control for sure.
Yeah.
Control doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like shrugging your shoulders, going small, and staying quiet. But this is something I've always wondered. Whose reaction were you trying to control by staying silent? Were you trying to control your reaction or mine? Like, was there a part of you that was like, I've seen what happens. I've seen how monstrous I can get when somebody really pushes me in an area that I don't want them knowing about.
Right.
Were you like, I can't let that monster out here?
Yeah. I wasn't that thought out in my head. I was reacting to your anger, which I saw your anger as the thing that I'm reacting to, not my lies are the thing you're reacting to. So you're angry. My reaction was not the problem.
Yeah, but you said it the first time. And I've been thinking a lot about this because a lot of guys are like, I don't like her reaction. And where my mind goes is, okay, it's a reaction. She is reacting to something. What was the initial action? And you said it, something about my reaction. So guys, if you don't like the way she reacts, then don't give her an action to react to.
Right.
So there wasn't a part of you that was like, oh, I need to keep this, I can't go.
No, part of the delusion, part of the keeping that part of me, that unacceptable part, the angry, defensive guy, he's in the other room too.
Because he's covered by the lie, and you're never going to.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of those unacceptable pieces of me.
Was there something you would hope I would do first? Like, did you have it in your mind, if she asks me 10 times, then I'll let her know, or if she just asks me a lot within a short amount of time?
Not at first.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that, early on we had other things going on, and I don't know that you were asking very often. But at first I was just like, no, there's no amount of questions she can ask, because I'm going to get this figured out and we're not going to talk about it again. I think I was hoping for somebody to open the door for me again, to give me a place to and even then I struggled. Even then I asked for 24 hours before I gave you an answer.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting though, because I get that your MO back then was like, no, just, and that's, you said you learned that early on in your life. You just, no, I'm just going to keep deny. And yet there were times that you did come out with it. What happened there? Before that, you had, there were minor D days.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't feel minor back then, but there were 3 D days before that.
Yeah.
That you did admit, okay, yeah, I got into it.
Right. the confession in 2000 and period of sobriety and making you my accountability partner all kind of added to the this isn't just a little screw up, this was a big screw up, or a lot that I had to cover. I didn't really feel like I had a support network at that time because the people who were my accountability team were no longer in my life,
Right.
really. And I don't think we were actively in church. We didn't have like an active circle. And so I think that was possibly part of it too, was I didn't have kind of a fallback position, I don't think.
Okay.
So
was there any part of your lying and hiding that felt holy or virtuous?
like I said in 606 episode, the idea that I'm protecting you from pain, the pain of, hey, I looked at porn versus, hey, I've lied to you 1,000 times. It would be a non-issue because I would have gotten clean and you wouldn't have to hear it. There's this mentality that, you know, it would protect you to not know. And so that's where it felt like the quote unquote right thing to do.
Okay. Last one. What do you think the spiritual cost was to ignoring that voice?
Again, it cost me peace. You know, I was in not just in emotional turmoil, but I was also in this kind of spiritual place where I was getting negative spiritual condemnation, you know, getting stepped on that way, like almost like spiritual verbal abuse of you're a failure, you're a loser, you're this, you're that I could have been free of. And so, you know, I think that was a cost of just taking on more negative than seeking God and love and that kind of stuff, and assuming that, you know, that this was okay.
Earlier, you said that one of the costs between me and you was, you know, we missed more years of this. What about like more years of what you have with God now?
Yeah, more years of that being acceptable, of walking in the knowledge, not that I'm I've cleaned up my act so much God accepts me, but I'm acceptable right here, right now. As my mentor puts it, I cannot be loved more than I am loved right now, whether I'm having a good day or a bad day. I've missed all of that.
Yeah.
You know, I lived in this place of feeling unlovable for years.
Okay. I remember being very into a certain worship leader who just had such intimate songs that it hit me in my heart every time. It had me bawling every time. It moved me every time, and it just brought me right into the presence of God. And I remember like wanting you to listen to those, wanting other people to listen to those. And I kind of got some blowback, and I was just like, but you guys are missing so much. And I felt your anger at me suggesting it. What was that about?
Around 2000, I began to experience that music differently.
Oh.
But I think the anger about it was like, what more is there to know? You know, like I had had kind of some of those spiritual experiences, and I walked away feeling like, oh, that felt nice. But do I feel satisfied? Do I feel deeply loved and accepted? No.
Okay.
So how is that going to change? You know, if all these other experiences haven't changed that sense, how is that going to change it?
Interesting. I never knew it changed for you in 2000. We could have listened to those songs together. I still was like, oh, he probably still doesn't like them. I still think you might have given me blowback because I think they would have taken you closer to God, and there was a part of you that you and I have discussed didn't really want to be seen by him.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
well, that's all my questions for today. And be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. It can really help us out. It's free. it'll help send this message to other people who need it. And we'll let you guys go because Jay's got a group call in just a few minutes. So,
All right, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
3, 2, 1, boom. 3, 2, 1.
Do we go on one or do we? I'm not sure what either one of those mean. How dare you?